Monsters Immortals, or M&M for short, my favorite candy. Known best as the multiplayer variant of Dark Deception, Glowstick Entertainment's horror sensation, this game obviously has a future planned with lots of collaborations and content in the works, so I figured let's document the game's first year being out and about. Just a forewarning, this retrospective is going to be on the sarcastic, satirical side. If you've seen these videos, you know what you're in for. While I'll mostly be focusing on my thoughts and experiences over these past 365 plus days, I will try to acknowledge the community's feelings on matters whenever I can. Now I said 365 plus instead of just 365 because we're going all the way back to the game's unveil, not just the release. Screw it, I'm not calling this video Monsters Immortals 1.5 years in, so take it or leave it. This is gonna be a long one, so strap in. If you only want to get up to speed on a certain part, I'll be putting time codes in the video description for each of the major stuff. Alright, I've exhausted all the time I can before the intro, let's get comprehensive. On April 1st, 2020, it was revealed that an upcoming multiplayer spin-off was in development. Vince Livings, the creator of Dark Deception, made the announcement at the tail end of Glowstick's third Q&A livestream. A multiplayer mode or version of Dark Deception had always been a heavily requested addition by longtime fans. So I gotta be honest, Vince, that's one heck of an April Fool's prank. Oh, it's real? The teaser trailer for Monsters Immortals came onto the scene in early May and certainly jump-started discussion. It didn't really show much since the trailer's purpose was mainly just to announce the game's existence, but it got the ball rolling. However, the most notable part about this trailer was the brute from Monstrum making an appearance, confirming that this game wasn't just Dark Deception exclusive. The day after the trailer, Glowstick posted the trailer theme in its entirety, Ascension, back when I used to love this theme. Don't get me wrong, I still like this music, but having it be the only thing playing on the main menu really gets tiring after a while. Later that month, we even got 2 new tracks for the Monstrum DLC, and that was May. Oh, unless you count Q&A 4. Nowadays, most live Q&As aren't anything to write home about, but back then, they were the talk of the town. That doesn't mean I'm gonna cover everything in them because Jesus Christ can they get long. Unlike the Q&As, I don't want this video to hit an hour's worth of runtime, so I'll only bring them up if the information is significant enough. A crossover with Yandere Simulator was confirmed, which was honestly a safe bet. Glowstick already collaborated with Yandere Dev for Lovesick Labyrinth prior, and yes, that's the first time someone has acknowledged that game's existence since 2020. Something I actually found quite a bit interesting is that Vince proposed the possibility of M&M releasing before DD Chapter 4. Now this told me that either Monsters Immortals was going to be pretty bare bones at launch, or Chapter 4 was more far off than we were thinking at the time. They were both correct. With June, we actually got our first glimpse at game footage showcasing Agatha in the hotel hitting herself. This was also the month that the Glowstick Entertainment and Keplerian's partnership became official, and while it predominantly was for Evil Nun the Broken Mask, an M&M DLC was announced alongside it. News on the release date was also set to come out the following month, and sure enough it did. Literally 5 minutes in the Q&A Live, episode 6, someone asked Vince and we got our answer, October 16th, 2020. This date was doubled down on Twitter, Steam achievements were said to be coming to the game, and that's it for July, moving on. Nothing happened in August, but September started strong with tons of confirmations. Every main character from chapters 1 through 3 of Dark Deception, Monstrum's Fiend, Senpai from Yandere Simulator, and the Lost Child from Evil Nun were all giving official cards to signify their inclusion. Yandere Dev himself was even confirmed, and man, I can't wait to play as him. We also got the Pizza Time track posted, Doug Hauser, Dee Dee's protagonist slated to be on the way, and a delay. Well, kind of. Oh hey, wait, delay? Doesn't that rhyme? Instead of the full game launching on the 16th, a private public beta would be held for a group of 1,000 players, which would be determined via a future sign-up sheet. So we'd still be getting the game on the day promised, just not the full game, and I was completely okay with this. Since multiplayer was still something the team was figuring out, it was understandable. Pricing details came out later that day at $9.99, and things were looking up for the following month. October, here we go! Glowstick started out the month with the Chapter 4 monsters getting their slots reserved, and we got our first look at the devs themselves crossing over into M&M. Herobrine's Soul Collection main, 50 Shard Penalty, they all looked awesome. And Daniel Dombrowski, the company's music composer, was also said to be coming down the road. On the 11th, the aforementioned sign-up form went out, and it exceeded expectations. So much so that the form was ditched completely, and the beta became fully open to the public. Being the first Dark Deception installment in over a year, fans wanted in, and the demand was high. And this demand only increased tenfold when the Steam page went up. Media from the actual game was incredibly sparse. Who knew sharing 7 screenshots of an unreleased indie game was enough to send hype levels off the charts? Why is there a giant goal watcher? Who is that? What is that? Is that a chef monkey? Why does this look so cool? So many questions, and the store description only heightened curiosity and hype, and the beta was only a few days off. After clarifying exactly what content was in the beta compared to the launch, teasing Vince's model, and sharing one last piece of music destined to fight, Dark Deception's multiplayer journey finally kicked off. The beta came with 6 characters, 2 maps, and 2 game modes. Murder Monkey, Agatha, Goldwatcher, and Dread Ducky joined the battle as monsters, while Doug Hauser and Detective Evans were the first mortals. Each character was sorted into a class that determined their stats such as speed, damage output, health, etc., you know the deal, and also given an ultimate ability. Every character is basically a derivative of another, since characters in the same class have identical stats with some slight exceptions to their attack ranges. Ultimates are character-specific abilities that are essentially the main way characters are made unique from one another. Everyone has 2 forms of dealing basic damage, light and heavy attacks. Light attacks are quicker but don't hit as hard, while heavies can be devastating but take twice as long to land. The starting stages were the hotel from Monkey Business and the hedge maze from Deadly Decadence. Scattered throughout these maps are portal boxes, which anyone can pick up for a special ability. These can either be buffs for yourself, debuffs for opponents, or bananas for Mario Kart, you know, whatever. I don't know, Logic left the room when he clicked on this video. Exceptions to this are the event triggers for Trap and Boss Time. Trap Time unleashes environmental hazards that negatively impact all players if not accounted for, and Boss Time summons an all-powerful, unstoppable boss monster for players to avoid. Every map has unique bosses and traps to stir up mayhem. With the first maps in particular, they introduced brand new, never-before-seen bosses, in the form of the Chef Monkey and Watcher Titan. 2 Chef Monkeys raise chaos when awakened in Monkey Business by making beelines to the closest targets. These things get right to the point, and can honestly be really hard to evade sometimes. Meanwhile, Titan Watcher takes advantage of the hedge maze having no roof, and rains on the parade with throwing giant axes all over the field. Deadly Decadence even gets more insane with tall spike traps that go off in intervals, and the hotel just scatters the aforementioned Mario Kart bananas everywhere for its trap time. On these maps, you could play one of 2 game modes. Maze Escape, most similar to standard Dark Deception, 1 monster versus 3 mortals trying to get away. Collecting the assigned number of soul shards opens up the escape portal for mortals to flee through. Monsters win if they successfully stop all mortals from escaping, and the mortals win if the opposite plays out. Ever wonder what would happen if Fortnite and Dark Deception met in a back alleyway? Well, Shard Mayhem is probably the closest result we'll ever get to that. 4 monsters all battling in a deadly free-for-all. The one who can amass the most amount of soul shards by the end is deemed the victor. Certain YouTubers got early access on the morning of release, and some were even streaming themselves playing with each other and the developers. Being available just a few hours later, fans were finally able to step into the Dark Deception multiplayer ring. And how did that go? It was pretty good. The beta was only available for about 5 days, but that didn't stop the community from eating this thing up and then some. While basic, the game provided some stupid fun. Nothing was even that unbalanced in the grand scheme of things at the time. No riots were formed. Of course it wasn't perfect, but a good amount of the major bugs were patched pretty fast. The only real issues I had were the strange lack of a settings menu and there not really being any rewards. Winning a game was nice and all, but there wasn't any incentive to keep playing outside of just wanting to have fun. Players weren't working towards anything. Now again, this was just a beta, a free one after all, and these 2 additions in particular were addressed to be coming with the launch version, so I couldn't complain. Not having a settings menu was really odd though. I mean, the button was there, you just couldn't click on it. Why? But even while the beta was still going strong, Glowstick wasn't leaving us hanging in terms of announcements, showing off progress of Nixon's model, confirming that the Monstrum DLC would come shortly after the game's launch, and declaring a whole new crossover, the Coma. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because I'm going to be honest, I never learned anything else about this game in the 1 year since this announcement was made, so moving on. Backtracking a bit to the Monstrum DLC, additional details such as the pricing and how DLC maps work came forward. In lobbies, as long as the hosting player has the DLC, anyone else in the group can play on the map. This is actually a pretty solid alternative for those who want the map but not the characters. But if you want the characters, screw you, pay the money. On the topic of characters, the finished models of Vince and Pen were showed, and can we just appreciate the character models for this game? Not the Dark Deception ones, those are phenomenal, but the new ones specifically for Monsters and Mortals are on a whole other level. So much detail, and I don't typically use this word, but these models are sexy. Please support this man. Please. Later that month, right before the intended release, the launch trailer came out, and guys, I love this trailer. The fast-paced and intense nature of the editing really fits with the vibe of Eminem. The only feeling not captured in the trailer is the BS. But who cares, new trailer. It showed off Malek, Beers, Clown Gremlin, and the revitalized Stranger Sewers map. We even got a damn good new remix of Doom Ducky's theme, now entitled Doom and Despair, which was uploaded on its own shortly after the trailer. But the inner fanboy inside of me was like, a new support class? Clown Patrol? Malek has a frickin' laser beam? Dark Deception's best boss, at the time, is back? Oh man, I can't wait to play this game tomorrow, son of a... So Glowstick couldn't get their build approved in time for Friday, and because of Steam's no releases on weekend policy, the game had to be pushed. I couldn't be too mad at the developers. I mean, the game was done, and to compensate, they were even working to add in extra characters in time for the new launch date, November 2nd. Now the video's title is accurate. The last few minutes of your life have been a lie, and now things are going to start being truthful. Launch day came, and here's where things got interesting. No achievements, damn. But an options menu, visual settings, input adjustments with controller support, but oddly no sound tab. But that's perfectly fine. I'm sure Glowstick Entertainment wouldn't leave the community for so long without sound options in one of their games. Right? One key difference was how friend play matches worked. Before, you could lobby up with others, and clicking play would throw you both into a private session within World Play. Now the host can decide exactly what map and mode they want to torture their friends with. The lobby will then give you a 6-digit code to send to others so they could join your game, and no, you can't use the codes in Among Us, I tried. Winning a game now grants you a red shard, and successfully completing a match lets you at least hang on to the soul shards you grabbed while playing. No store or anywhere to spend these forms of currency anywhere though, so we were just forced to play the saving up game until later notice. We got probably one of the most hated items added into the Portal Box Roulette, Soul Corruption. Reverses all player controls for a short period of time. Have fun! This item is definitely meant to peeve players off, so that's a thing. From here on out, we will also be bringing up the game's meta, or most strategic characters players just had a field day with. I in no way have that much smarts when it comes to breaking down a game's competitive scene, but I don't care, we're doing this anyway. Even though it was harder to judge with the beta, Agatha was by far the most powerful, being able to deal an immediate 100 damage to the foe with the lowest health. Her viability was also greatly increased with the most recent map at the time, Stranger Sewers. It was massive. Take Monkey Business for instance, people generally liked playing on this map, and for good reason. The size and layout are perfect for multiplayer, but when we reach Stranger Sewers, oh my god, it's bigger than PewDiePie's sub count. Couple this with how basic the map was with large linear hallways, and we have a map that greatly benefits speed monsters for maze escape, everybody. If you go a power monster on this map instead, good frickin' luck. You are going to have a ridiculously hard time catching mortals off guard. There are barely any places to cut players off here. Doom Ducky, the stage's boss, is also just not that dangerous. Just look both ways before crossing the street and you'll be fine. This game taught me how to do that in real life too. Now the boss is a pretty decent threat in the level center, but let's be honest, no one goes there, why would you? Same with the short spike traps, they can be pretty tricky the closer you get to the middle, but they're barely a threat elsewhere. So yeah, great map for Agatha, and as we'll see later on, future speed monsters. But players also quickly realized how good Clown Gremlin was with his ultimate here. In fact, same with the other maps. Pressing Q summons 5 clones onto the battlefield to harass others with light attacks, but there was literally no way to get rid of them. But that was only half the story. Attack ranges are known to fluctuate considerably between different characters, so much so that they play a key role in determining a character's usefulness. Good examples being Monkey and Ducky. Monkey's heavy attack has minimal reach, and Ducky's light can deliver assault from a good distance. Clown's heavy has more range than my use of vocabulary, it's nuts. Next to Agatha, he utterly dominated matches in World Play, and I'd even argue that back then he was the most played monster. Now you may have noticed that these characters were mainly issues in Maze Escape. What about Shard Mayhem? Well, due to the massive health that monsters had there, ultimates didn't really turn the tide of games so easily. And this was true. Until our first balancing update. Version 1.1.5 arrived a mere 3 days after launch. The most obvious change was the inclusion of this little widget on the left side of your screen. This relays all information such as player devs, respawn, certain items, ultimates, etc. Definitely a great addition I'm sure we'll all value. Chef Monkeys no longer had collision and blocked players. Before, if you got cornered, it was basically sayonara. Clown Gremlin got nerfed to where 5 hits would now kill his clones instead of them being invincible, but that barely made a dent in his player base. Kills earned by his clones would also now count for whoever they belong to. Bananas can now be destroyed with just one heavy attack, and fans rejoiced. I see a lot of new players complaining about these traps today, and I can't help but imagine if this change wasn't implemented, how much worse their whining would be. All of these changes were completely fair and accepted, but the next batch of adjustments was a bit more controversial. The bulk of the new changes altered Maze Escape. Mortals now lost shards based on their class, effectively decimating the pen pal population since losing 50 shards upon death is damn harsh. Who thinks this is alright? Players in Ghost Mode can now see everyone through walls, mortals can see their teammates, and now monsters could see every mortal. This definitely helped up the action in certain matches. Under the right circumstances, a monster could literally spend most of their game just simply trying to find mortals, especially in sewers. Speaking of that level, Stranger Sewers actually got a size reduction, axing 2 of the 4 big rooms. It's still freaking huge, don't get me wrong, but it was a good step in the right direction to make this map at least a bit more bearable. Yet now we reach the real meat of this update, the stats rework. Every character, or rather every class, had their health and damage output completely modified in an attempt to even the playing field. The goal was to make monsters not absolute beasts and give mortals more of a fighting chance against them. But I don't know, man, some would argue they took it too far. It's way too easy for mortals to just wallop on a monster. 3, 2, or heck, even just one mortal can now stand their ground. Even today, certain people wish the game would revert back to the old system. I'm not sure if I'm one of them, but I do see where they're coming from. Personally, I just feel that monsters aren't enough of a challenge in Maze Escape anymore. But since these adjustments were global, they spilled into Shard Mayhem as well. And oh boy, here comes the madness. If there was any doubt about Agatha being top tier, this update proved many wrong. 100 damage wasn't that big of a deal before, but the health decrease made it much more problematic. The only real way to counter it was to use a shield at the right moment, which is way easier said than done, or to use a health pack, which, like getting a shield, is luck-based. Now I'm using present tense here because this is still the way Agatha operates today, same with the now busted Dread Ducky. Both of these ults should do a percentage instead of just a hard-coded number, but that's just what I would do. What about the mortal side though? Well, Detective Evans was definitely a popular pick with being able to freeze monsters for 10 seconds, but aside from that, character choices were pretty varied. Bierce, Vince, Nixon, the last one also stood out, but his full potential hadn't yet arrived. But with their current momentum, Glowstick was not slowing down. Their efforts were being put into a substantial update that dropped later that month. Before we get there though, might as well mention the official Discord server. To accommodate the community's multiplayer needs, Vince set up a Discord community server for players to share codes and discuss the game. Only real thing the Discord was missing were voice channels, but let's just say the community found a way around that little issue. Elementary Evil was added. Hooray! I love this level in the original game, and it's one of my preferred maps in M&M. The fake portals return as hazards during trap time, but detonate shortly after contact. Touch them and back away ASAP. Being too close will deal a massive 100 damage, just like the tall spike traps. Now there are two complications with the portals. Exhibit A. The spawning can be really cheap at times and put too many in one area. There's a clear solution though, just decrease the proximity with how they spawn. A similar thing occurs with the bananas on Monkey Business as well, but the portals are lethal. Now Exhibit B. A portal spawning on you. If a portal happens to spawn on top of your unlucky self, well do I have 100 damage for you. For this, I'd recommend making the portals not trigger contact for the first second or so that players have time to get out of the way before meeting an unfair punishment. Cool trap idea, just needs some adjustments, and not to be too annoying. Next up, boss time. What the heck is that? About a week before this map entered the game, we got this gem of music uploaded, and it was obviously for the school's boss time. Speculation ran wild even before this track on what the boss could be. The most common prediction was a teacher or the ghost children from Zone 2, but instead we got these little annoying symbol things. God, what are those called? The alphabet letters threw a lot of people off guard. 7 spawned during their chant and raised anarchy across the school. To compensate for their number, they could only deal 10 damage per hit, which in my opinion can honestly be buffed to 15. Not many die to the letters, and there's just simply not that threatening gameplay-wise. Design-wise, I'm a fan, however. Part of me also wishes that the developers made all 26 letters and the game would just randomly pick 7 of them to spawn in. It would do wonders to the level's replayability, and there wouldn't be too many gameplay changes, since the only difference between letter to letter is that their speed is slightly randomized upon appearing. Batter up, because we finally got a new mode, Soul Collection. Essentially just Shard Mayhem with mortals, i.e. Immortal Free-for-All, but with a twist. Whoever's in last place by the end of a shard wave is killed and gets turned into a monkey by Malik, reinforcing to everyone how Murder Monkey was just okay and nothing more. I had a thought once that Malik should transform you into the monster native to the map that you're playing on, but then I remembered that Ducky and Agatha ults existed and I appropriately shut down that idea. Definitely an interesting mode, but let's be honest, not many people are willing to play it. At least over time, the game mode got a bit more interesting with new characters and a shard increase that I'll touch upon later, but this was easily the least popular way of play. The next large topic of discussion on the chopping block is that M&M now had an economy. The store was now open for business, selling skins and concept art. Items were classed as either common or rare and could be bought with 5,000 soul shards or 25 red shards respectively. Jesus Christ, that's kinda pricey, don't you think? I know this game is effectively having you sign away your soul with how much grinding is required to unlock everything, but god damn. And the fact that you had to pay for concept art was a bit on the lamer side. They should have been achievements, but the skins were way more praised in comparison. Not a single one of these I hated. They were all great at best or just decent at worst. They initially didn't show up on clown clones for some reason, but that was fixed within the following week from what I recall. A leveling system was now present with a bar that was incremented every time you won. Each level up would award you with soul shards, and occasionally red ones. Levels were the basis for tiers, which are honestly nothing more than bragging rights. This brings us to the stats tracking menu, which displays a wide array of statistics based on your play history. I was kinda disappointed when this page didn't include info like your time played with certain characters and, stuff like that. But hey, I'm still sane, so it must not have been that big of a deal. For those who leave games earlier than they should, the next time they log in, they will be face to face with this pop-up. Now, one would naturally assume that doing this again would result in some kind of penalty, but nope. It's apparently supposed to deduct 1 red shard from your total, but this mechanic was never implemented, and it is a huge issue. There are literally no consequences to just dipping out of games early, same for those who cheat with stuff like UE Unlocker. How it's taken so long to add this is beyond me, but hopefully one day these concerns will be addressed. Time to talk meta. People began realizing the viability of Malik and Bierce around this time, and even Nixon got a pretty damn good boost with the addition of Soul Collection. Having an ultimate that just immediately collected a fair amount of shards on the map was a must-have in this mode. Sure, he couldn't really defend himself that great, but that ultimate was too good to pass up for many. What's that sound, you ask? It's the sound of the police, but it's also the sound of a Detective Evans nerf. The stun on his flashlight was lowered from 10 seconds to 7, but he was also still fairly popular amongst players. So that was pretty much the update, which to date was probably the most influential patch we got in terms of pure content. This update added so much, and that cannot be understated. However, Glowstick was far from done with pumping out new content. Our first DLC was underway. We honestly didn't get that much until just a few days before release. We got the shop theme uploaded to YouTube, which is honestly a bop. Oh yeah, the steamed music trap released before the EE update, I forgot to mention that crap. But let's get to the point here, the Monstrum DLC showcase. Hosted by Glowstick's editor at the time, Super Horror Bro, we got an in-depth look at what was in store for the player base. The map, the characters, the traps, bosses, a release date, everything. This was a very satisfying presentation. There was really only one complaint about the content showcased, but we'll get there in due time. The Steam page went up, and the day after we got the trailer. Honestly, doing these DLC trailers after their showcase is kinda pointless because we pretty much know everything in the video. Footage used in the trailer was also used in the showcase, so that's a thing I guess. But hey, that barely matters. What does matter is that the Monstrum DLC for Eminem launched on December 21st and was absolute fire in more ways than one. All aboard the Hisamaru, another outside map, but this time at sea. A faithful yet still unique recreation of the original ship in Monstrum, this stage felt like the perfect blend of both games. It was also our first map to introduce multiple floors to traverse, 4 layers to duke it out in, collect shards, and dodge this level's unique hazards. Steam traps, they were annoying in Monstrum, they're annoying here, checks out. Nah, these things aren't really that bad if you know what you're doing. Just wait if you need to move before going onward to avoid the gas. Honestly, this is one of those fairer traps in the game. My only issue is that sometimes they'll just come straight out of the wall instead of the pipe. 0 out of 10, literally unplayable. But hey, remember when I said people had an issue with the showcase? Well, there you go! Super Brutes, a group of 4 scorching enemies. See, here's the thing, the Brute is already a playable character in the game. The Super Brute, or Boss Brute as I'm also going to be calling it, is an original creation for this DLC. Now this may or may not be the definition of time constraints. Many were yearning for the hunter from Monstrum to climb aboard as the level's boss monster. Now that would have been really cool and completed this trio of Charlie's Devils, but it's nothing losing sleep over. I mean, hey, at least the Super Brutes aren't completely annoying, right guys? Right? Oh god damn it. These bosses can shoot fireballs and set you ablaze. Now that wouldn't be so bad if they didn't deal 100 frickin' damage. Getting hit ignites you and deals damage over time until you hit 100. But here's the issue, you see, the Super Brutes were never properly educated on what collision was, so these fireballs are no stranger to clipping through parts of the map to get to you. This makes the mechanic even more unfair than it has any right being. They are incredibly annoying, but thank god you can glitch them. Their drop-in is about the only praise I can give them, but don't worry, we'll be discussing an equally annoying sack of pain later on. I'll give you a hint, his name starts with Red Pyramid Fin and ends with G, happy guessing. Back on topic, characters! The Brute is here as a power monster and can pull off an ability deemed Magma Charge. This makes him essentially the fastest thing in the game, and contact with him will burn you to a crisp, just like the boss Brutes. Not much else to say, I'm saving my words for our next adversary, the Fiend. Levitating with his psychic abilities, the Fiend has a reverse Agatha ult. Instead of teleporting to others, they will be transported to you with a stun and the opportunity to lay absolute waste to them. This honestly feels like cyberbullying. Fiend's ult was basically Primal Fear, but just cutting out the step of needing to find someone to stun first. And just like Agatha, he went for opposing players with the lowest HP, and because this was a stun, Jesus Christ, it was OP. Immediately, this was better than Agatha in terms of damage, but say the victim of this abuse survives the ordeal, what then? The devs decided to just straight up give Fiend a passive ability for some reason. Landing a successful heavy attack pulled the opponent closer to you, which was just the icing on the cake for this migraine factory. The 2 people who mained Pen had to hide until this update blew over, and I can't blame them. If you were Pen in a game with a Fiend as the monster, they already won, I'm sorry. I said this update was absolute fire, quite literally with the Brute abilities lighting people up, but the Fiend essentially set the community on fire, and the nerf was universally demanded. However, if you think Fiend's place in the meta was overpowered, wait until you hear about Nixon. This dude literally ascended and became a god emperor with this update, I'm not even joking. The number of shards in Soul Collection was increased tenfold and it was nuts. It made the mode way more enjoyable with the constant pickups, but it came with a price. How to win Soul Collection: pick Nixon, charge your ult, wait until a new shard wave hits, press Q, and bam, over 100 shards in your bank account. GG easy, no refunds. Although Nixon wasn't completely uncontested to be fair, our final new character of the DLC, Prisoner Borisov, a power mortal that ultimately replaced Evans in the meta. His ult works a bit like the detective, but slows down players rather than completely immobilizing them. Freezing people with your fire extinguisher helped significantly in either mode that supported mortals. So that was the Monstrum DLC, top tier map, but it introduced so many broken things into our hearts. Oh well, when the game is unbalanced, at least we always have the store to turn to. My shopping addiction should help cheer me up. Wait, what do you mean there's no new items in the store? Yeah, so purchasing a DLC not only gifts you the characters you paid for, but they also all come loaded with each of their skins ready to go. I mean, sure, that makes sense because you already paid real money for this and not in-game currency, but I'm the type of guy who likes unlockables. Why else do you think I keep badgering on about achievements? Actually, wait, I spoke too soon. Alongside a balancing update, we got holiday skins for the Glowstick mortals. These were pretty snazzy and they were set to be available for purchase year-round, not just for the season, despite what they were. But come on, if you're still watching this, you obviously care at least a little bit about the meta, so let's discuss the balancing changes. The Purge finally happened. Nixon, Clown, and Fiend all met their deserved fates, and their reigns were over. All three are still pretty decent to play today, but they are nowhere near as busted as they once were. They could no longer dominate games, but the rest of these maniacs were left untouched. Why? This patch also tried to finally slam the nail in the coffin with lobby mistakes. Ever since the beta, there's always been a chance that the lobby just gives up and allows two monsters a maze escape. It's relatively uncommon to come across today, but it could still happen unfortunately, and a solution doesn't seem to be on the way. Not even Nixon knows what the game's deal is. Some minor collision bugs on the monster map were fixed, and the telepathy item got some adjustments. Its duration was reduced by half, and it now worked properly on Mortals and Soul Collection. And oh dear god, I just realized this video is so long because I keep bringing up minute stuff like this. Moving on. At this point, the future was looking pretty bright for the community, both DD and Eminem fans, until the apocalypse happened. Yes, Chapter 4 unfortunately got hit with another delay, and people were angry. Some got a little too angry, but we're not gonna go into that. Unlike past delays, however, we actually got a different reason aside from we need more time. The team was looking to collaborate with a big publisher for Monsters and Mortals, and part of that agreement meant that the DLC had to be worked on sooner rather than later. Now I get how frustrating the Chapter 4 delay was, I really do. But this was evidently an opportunity of a lifetime for Glowstick. I can't blame them for taking it. Since we weren't going to be playing Chapter 4 anytime soon, all the community could do was gear up for this big announcement. I mean, this better be Silent Hill or something. Oh damn, it was! I don't know how in God's name Glowstick Entertainment managed to convince frickin' Konami to sign away their soul. Frickin' Konami to let Eminem crossover as one of the biggest gaming names in all of horror, but it happened! Man, is this timeline interesting. For those unaware, Silent Hill is a AAA franchise with a massive audience. However, the franchise was laying rather dormant as Konami was being Konami and did this. So Silent Hill fans were praying for a new installment in their favorite horror series. Could this crossover satiate their appetite? I mean, I know the answer, but I'm acting like we both don't for the point of the video, so just go along with it. One by one, the character reveals were posted along with the stage's boss. Additionally, the trailer track, Daniel Dombrowski's version of Clawfinger, was uploaded with the statement that we weren't getting the rest of the music until later. The store page was put up with a really pixelated logo and a placeholder date that revealed that we get to play this before the end of March. Ultimately, this all led to the showcase on March 18th. Now, if the Monstrum DLC showcase was an A, this one was an A++. Every character, the map, the traps, the boss, the freaking gun, it all looked incredible. Even when under pressure, Glowstick proved that they can create a real crowd pleaser visually. Gameplay-wise, yeah, don't worry, we'll get to that in a sec. The page was updated and we got this news. Unlike Monstrum, the Silent Hill DLC was set to only be available for a limited time on store shelves. People who bought themselves a copy had access to the content forever, but new purchases couldn't be cashed after a certain point. This didn't sit well with the community, but there was nothing Glowstick could do. The DLC was also $9.99, which was already the price of the base game, but this was obviously bigger than the Monster one, so it didn't get under my skin that much. This was sadly just something they had to follow in order to work with Konami. It's unfortunate this is the case, but it's not the end of the world. As of writing, the DLC is still available and doesn't appear to be getting delisted anytime soon. But if you haven't bought it yet and still want in, I'd recommend you act now just in case. Just a few days before release, we got a new soundtrack and the DLC trailer, which did nothing except reveal how high-pitched Heather's voice was.
Seal of Metatron!
Yeah, remember what I said about DLC trailers coming after their showcases? Yeah, this is why. So March 23rd was your average Silent Hill DLC for Monsters and Mortals release day. Enough narrowing down, let's discuss what made up this pack. Silent Sacrifice is our next destination, and aesthetically... dang. The atmosphere is on point here, and it's clear that despite it just being some roads and buildings, Glowstick tried to be respectful to the Silent Hill IP. The music does this map so many favors. The standard theme is one of my favorite Eminem tracks to date, just for how it sets the tone. But we can't ignore the obvious issue here. Remember that side tangent about wide open maps I went on and on about and how they're just not that very good? Well, what do you know, Stranger Sewers has a twin in terms of layout simplicity. This tweet makes a lot more sense now. Even their abbreviations match up, however, unlike sewers, the level hazards actually mean business. Air Screamers assume the role of trap time and guard certain areas of the map where portal boxes are located. They'll strike if you get too close, but can be disposed of in a manner similar to clown clones, 6 lights or 3 heavies. I've heard the complaint that the Air Screamers are just like Boss Time 2.0, and I see where they're coming from, but I personally never had a grievance about it. But on the topic of Boss Time, oh boy, let's talk Red Pyramid Thing, where Pyramid Head has 99% of the player base use that name instead. Initiating his encounter transforms the landscape into a dark, eerie other world. The fog rolls in even more so than before, and roaming within it is everyone's favorite Triangle Man. Wielding a giant sword, this executioner is not playing around. He can teleport, dash, swing his blade, and even stun nearby competitors. Aesthetic-wise, this is Eminem's best boss enemy. But gameplay-wise, he could F right off. 2 of these guys prowl the map and will not back down. If one's on you, it will not leave you alone until boss time is over. On top of that, his attacks are known to be wonky with hit detection. The most popular strategy to deal with him is to constantly stay ahead of him, not too far that he doesn't dash, but not too close to the point where he'll ground pound. This was coined the social distance strategy, and much like a hosting fiend with poor internet, you'll want to stay away from him. But even then, interference from other players is far more punishing with this boss. Oh, and you can hit him for some reason, but it literally does nothing, so it's kinda pointless. At the very least, hitting him could maybe redirect who he's chasing in maze escape, or I don't know, just a thought. That way it's easier to keep valuable players on the field with less worry. This brings me to another issue worth discussing, looping boss time. As soon as boss time ends, while unlikely, there's a very real chance a player grabbing an item box could just trigger it again the next moment. Thus it loops. While this is an issue at trap time as well, it's obviously a bigger problem with boss time, and Pyramid Head really emphasizes that. A cooldown would be immensely appreciated for these mechanics. Make it so players can't draw these triggers for like a minute after they conclude. So that's about it for Silent Sacrifice. What can I say? Visually it's amazing, but the gameplay feels like I'm constantly being kicked in the face at points. It took me a while to realize that I just don't enjoy playing on this map. Definitely better when the mode isn't maze escape, but that doesn't excuse how cracked the boss is. And the traps do not complement it at all. Accompanying this map, we got several characters to investigate. Our first support monster was here, and it's the Nurse from Silent Hill. She has a unique ability that applies various debuffs to opponents while buffing herself, dubbed Fear. But this was 100% the least played character of the update. I don't know guys, her range is the dictionary definition of underwhelming, and she was just easily overshadowed by who we'll be talking about next. Lucky the Rabbit's long-lost father, Robbie, was another balanced monster that took the idea of Clown's ability with cloning and took it in a whole new direction. Upon activation, 3 clones follow Robbie and attack those he fights with. They will have the same health as the Clown variety, but being able to directly influence what they do and how loyal they are, Robbie was different enough and maybe even a bit better than Clown Gremlin. Heck, like Robbie, Clown could no longer charge his ult while his clones were out, which was effectively just another nerf for him, oh goody. Introducing Little Miss Plot Armor, or Heather as sensible people call her, and Sybil Bennett. Well, is this a Detective Evans wannabe? Oh, I stand corrected. Yep, Dark Deception has a gun now, everyone! I wondered which of these would happen first. The range is by far the longest of any base attack in the game because it's a frickin' firearm. Her ultimate was also really cool, being able to reset an enemy's ultimate charge, but Sybil was immediately OP. Having the same damage output as other balanced mortals just with a longer range and a really versatile ultimate, she was an easy conflict of interest, and it didn't take long for the devs to notice this at all. But here's the thing. Shooting people with that long range can be super satisfying, so I always thought a work with a new class or something would be much better than a nerf. Put her and Ducky in a new class so their damage values can be adjusted and boom, flawless solution. Yet the unnoticed powerhouse of this DLC came in the form of Heather Mason. She completely just replaced Bierce in the meta, not even a question. Bierce's core flaw was that she wasn't the best at supporting a team, but Heather's Seal of Metatron granted every ally a whopping 80% damage reduction. Now that is something to write home about. It was also intended to give a slight speed boost, but that part was bugged, making her just a slight bit more tolerable. This update was also home to some under-the-hood balance changes. Alright, let's see those patch notes. This is incredible. Chef Monkey's got a damage nerf, Fiend got a slight buff, Evans was nerfed, and... Wait, what, Pen Pen was also nerfed? I thought I was going mad for a hot minute, but a friend and I tested her out and compared her speeds, and yeah, her ult didn't make her any faster than normal, which puzzled the heck out of me. But thankfully this was a confirmed bug. Shard store prices were permanently discounted, which definitely helped to mitigate some of the grind. Triple items were also removed from portal boxes because straight up no one liked waiting 24 seconds to waste Triple Frenzy, and 3 Primal Fears packed together across the line. But you see, disregarding these from item rolls only increased the likelihood of others. most notably Phantom Malik's spawn rate. I'm sure you could tell where I'm going with this. The rarest item poll, and I'm putting rarest in quotations, is the trigger to summon Malik's phantom form. If you played this game for long enough, you damn well know I don't need to explain the horrors this item brings to the table. Fast, hits hard, and insanely difficult to lose. The only sort of viable strategy to do this is an awkward shuffle thing for 45 seconds to prevent non-living, but the absolute worst part is that you can spawn multiple. I've had games that start out well enough and then bam, 3 Phantom Maliks crash the party. While there's a hilarious aspect to it, it's just not fun. If the devs don't want to nerf Phantom Malik, fine. It's a tough pill to swallow, but I'll probably live. But at the very least, make it so we can't spawn more than one of these floating bath towels in a match, please! Disregarding what the update brought, we got the Trap Time soundtrack the same day, which really should have gone out a day before for everyone, but whatever. The following day, we were hit with a pretty neat patch that fixed some notable issues, and hey, there's patch notes, hooray! Nixon finally fixed some of the cheesing with the boss brute since they couldn't enter the control room anyway, which was nice. He just needs to fix the other 4 spots you could do this in and we should be good. Doomducky got a slight collision buff, the alarm sound on Monstrum now turns off after trap time, Heather's ult had some of its oversights addressed, good stuff. Now legend has it that the developers were able to successfully pull off a win in Silent Sacrifice during Maze Escape while testing, and I have no idea how they did it. Doing it nowadays is tricky, but at launch, a full 1000 shards is almost impossible thanks to the map issues I outlined earlier. 850's more manageable, but still rather difficult without good team coordination. Apparently Borisov's ult just didn't work with the latest update, so that was fixed, and the healing on a heavy attack for support models was re-implemented. I don't even think I mentioned that earlier, shoot. And we got a new quality of life improvement. Whenever you're under a certain effect, its associated icon will appear next to your health bar. Helpful addition, we just need something similar for if you're a shard leader, and I'll be a happy camper. The Monsters Immortals community was fairly happy at the time, but what about the Silent Hill fandom? Did these worlds colliding help their fanbases make peace as well? I hate to say it, but that just simply didn't happen. Heck, when the crossover announcement first happened and hit news articles, the Silent Hill Reddit was collectively saying, "What is this and what is it doing with our Silent Hill?" As I said earlier, Silent Hill fans were looking for a new installment, and while this was a decent attempt, you couldn't exactly blame Glowstick for not succeeding. Vince set up a poll on Twitter about the fate of Worldplay. Axe it or tolerate it were the options, and the result was pretty divided. While the votes didn't decide anything, it did let the developers know that we weren't exactly pleased with public matches. We've all had those insane waiting times, not just waiting for players, but even finding a session could actually be more painful than playing the game itself. This negativity mostly comes from how the game is peer-to-peer with no dedicated servers, but just removing worldplay altogether is not the way to go. I'm all for front-play supremacy, but forcing people to find players outside the game itself to enjoy some multiplayer fun is kinda self-defeating. But yeah, the rest of the week was pretty good. I owned Vince with a gun, hallelujah. The next DLC was in the works, and it wasn't a crossover with another IP, but with popular YouTubers who helped grow Dark Deception. 8-Bit Ryan, Daco, and Super Horror Bro were all making appearances and had their in-game mortal personas teased throughout late March and April. We later got a store page with an April 30th release date, and whoa, I'm going through this part pretty fast, aren't I? You see, since there wasn't a map, production on this DLC was incredibly easy since the most difficult part about creating a new character for Eminem was the assets. Programming them was simple, and we were able to see this DLC just a month after Silent Hill, which was pretty sweet. The day before release, a premiere was put up for a teaser video that would advertise the creator pack. It obviously wasn't a showcase, so what could it be? Huh, a CGI skit. Well, I guess it's not the strangest marketing decision out there, and it did show off the models further, which looked insane! You already know where I'm going with this, so I'm just gonna move along. I have a whole other page gushing over the quality of these visuals, so I'm just gonna save you and skip that part. April 30th was the next day, and we got the UK creators release right on time. We didn't even know the classes and abilities of these guys beforehand, which certainly added to the intrigue. 8-Bit Ryan is power and is quite literally the mortal version of Dread Ducky, but strangely more balanced? His ult isn't a one-shot and deals a specific percentage. Oh hey, what do you know? Now he's fairer than Ducky, sure, but compared to other mortals, 8-Bit Beatdown is still absolutely busted, thus completing the Broken Blondies trio. Does this make you feel okay? Thankfully, all of the OP potential went into Ryan for this update, as Daco and Super Horror Bro are surprisingly balanced. Daco supports his team and can glitch himself plus fellow teammates to guard them from heavy and light attacks, and honestly, this is a great ultimate. While Darkest Desire was a bit bugged at launch since getting hit by any AI opponents would remove the effect for some reason, the visuals of being glitched looked killer. Super Horror Bro wielded those giant scissors, which is a fun reference to him being a video editor, and his ultimate allows him to send a wave forward and endow a new effect on enemies. Bleeding is the name of the game, and it inflicts damage over time, a very satisfying ult to land. That was essentially it for this update, aside from some bug fixes with Pen and Heather's speeds while ulting, truly cementing the near unstoppable nature of Miss Plot Armor over here. And that's basically Monsters Immortals' first year. What, we started on April 1st, 2020, and now we're ending on April 30th, 2021. That's more than a year. You should be more than gracious. Okay, fine, we'll discuss the rest. In summer 2021, we hit the largest drought we had ever seen from this game. No new updates, barely any news, and just not much to look forward to for May, June, July, August, and September. This is the extent of what we got. Now, why is this? Well, the answer was surprisingly simple. Chapter 4. After numerous delays, Glowstick decided to buckle down and get this thing done. The prolonged development time also encouraged the devs to turn up the quality a couple notches with enhanced visuals. This not only affected Chapter 4, but the previous 3 episodes as well. Summer was pretty much DD Enhanced time to shine, quite literally because damn, look at those reflections. These updates also brought over the Chef Monkey and Watcher Titan from M&M, which was joyous to see. Unfortunately, it was shot down pretty quick that these visual improvements would make their way over to multiplayer, at least not anytime soon. While this was good for Dark Deception, Monsters Immortals was left in the dark and fans weren't sure how to feel for months about this, until a little revival happened. Being a Monsters Immortals fan during this period of time wasn't pleasant, but patience in this community is rewarded for the truest fans. On September 28th, we got some solid proof that God existed as Dark Deception Chapter 4 finally came out. Fans partied, and it was awesome to see such a massive project finally conclude its development. Whether or not you like the chapter or not, you gotta admit that this was a huge moment for the community. This also meant that with the Chapter 4 shaped gap in the devs' priority list, they could spread more time into others, and if you can't assume what I'm inferring, you obviously haven't been paying attention. Just a week and a half after Chapter 4's launch, Reaper Nurse was announced to be joining the roster alongside some Halloween-themed skins. We got the update the following Tuesday, and it did more than we predicted. What do you know, Sybil actually got a rework under a brand new class, Ranged. Basically having the same stats as a balanced mortal, she was slightly faster, dealt less damage, and had a much longer cooldown when attacking. It makes her not as fun to play as before, but these were necessary changes. The trio is no more! Although I would appreciate a shorter cooldown because only firing a shot every 2 seconds makes Sybil feel way more tanky than I'd like. The max level was also raised to 300 for the psychopaths that reached the previous cap at 200. Every base game character got at least 1 new outfit, Monkey and Watcher got 2, and Reaper Nurse got 3. But obviously the star of the show here is the Reaper Nurse herself. Skating under the speed roll, her ultimate is pretty much just vanish and frenzy roll into 1 with a longer duration period. Now Reaper Nurse herself is alright, definitely on the stronger side, but this update really made me wish that issues like hosting privileges and pulling off a double heavy just didn't exist. It is my dream for this game to have actual servers instead of peer-to-peer, but we need a more consistent player base for that. Oh well, maybe one day. So don't ask me how, but strangely some of the UK creators' assets were just missing from the project file now. Again, don't ask me how. This was fixed the following day, but at a price. Taco's glitch effect had to be redone, which was a real shame. While the new one does resemble more of what a glitch would probably look like, the old one was just awesome. Also, his ultimate was tweaked to be a bit more crowd control based, affecting literally everyone on the field now. Apparently this was just how it was initially intended to work, but I gotta be honest, I might prefer the old Daco. The next update was slated to feature Chapter 4's Joy Joy gang, and that brings us to today. Oh my god! Literally one day before the anniversary, an update adding in the mascots was put out. Screw sleep, let's cover our final batch of characters. Remember my rant about 8-bit Ryan being Ducky? Fun. To be fair, Lucky has by far the most balanced iteration of the ult, but come on, this is the 3rd time we've gotten this ability. Angry became a power monster because let's be honest, he was not going to be anything else. He does a Mario ground pound on the floor and damages nearby foes, which is unique enough for me to get behind it. Penny throws eggs. But they kinda suck. Penny is our first ranged monster, and oh my god is she painful. She carries over that same feeling from Sybil with attacks taking 5 business days to pull off. But the main difference is that her eggs have literally no limit in range. However, they are on the slower side and mass firing them is just not possible. They only do 20 damage too, which is just abysmal. Her health though. Penny feels like a character you don't play as to win, you play as her just to annoy others. It's obviously still early to tell how viable she truly is, because, I mean, she literally just came out, but the general consensus is that she's just not worth the effort. Dread Ducky actually got a nerf this update, but it didn't really change him much, so we're not really going to go into that because he's still essentially the same. Now I would love to go more in depth with my final thoughts here, but Jesus Christ, have you seen how long this video has been going on for? I already pretty much outlined my specific feelings during the video, so let me conclude with some generalized final words. It's certainly been a great year with some hiccups along the way. I enjoy this game, it can be really fun with the right people, but certain elements are just straight up unfair sometimes. Moreover, certain bugs and issues have existed in this multiplayer game for a long while, and it's time to see them depart if you ask me. I love the regular Dark Deception, but my feelings towards Monsters Immortals fluctuate so often. If Glowstick Entertainment is watching this, first of all, thank you. Second of all, I hope you hard workers are walking away from this video with something. I don't represent everyone's views on this game, but I am trying to document what has been said and what's happened over this past year. Regardless of who you are, I'm sure most of us are looking forward to what's on the horizon for year 2. Plenty of base game content and DLCs are scheduled, and I honestly cannot wait to see them all in action. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.